Hello there and welcome to Unqualified Opinions. I'm your host as always, Marko. And today we'll be discussing some European football news, and I'm joined by Joseph Rena.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, and before we begin, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave your own unqualified opinions in the comment section down below. Okay, so Joseph, let's start off with a bang here. The treble winners, Bayern Munich, starting off their season with an 8-0 victory against Schalke. Just your general thoughts from the game.
Yeah, this one was never in doubt. I mean, every one of Bayern's starting forwards and midfielders had a direct goal contribution. This has been 14 straight wins for Bayern. On the other side, Schalke have now conceded at least 4 goals in their last 3 Bundesliga games. So this one, when you really look at it, like Bayern played very, very well and Schalke did not. And I really think that Schalke is going to be looking to avoid the drop, honestly. Serge Gnabry had a hat trick. Leroy Sané had a goal and 2 assists, as well as Lewandowski. So what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, yeah, you touched on it. Very impressive from Bayern Munich. A really crazy stat. Bayern Munich yet to lose a game in the calendar year of 2020 and have only had 1 draw the entire year, that being a match against RB Leipzig in the Bundesliga in February. That is a ridiculous stat, to be quite honest with you. And yeah, as far as this Schalke team, they're not the strongest. Obviously, a team that you mentioned most likely will be just trying to avoid relegation this season. But that aside, this Bayern team was so ridiculously dominant, and they're continuing their form from last season. And if they continue this form, the Bundesliga shouldn't be close, and Champions League is theirs to lose. So a great performance from Bayern, and like we mentioned, continuing the same form as last season. Lewandowski and co, very impressive against Schalke. So let's move to some Juventus news, as Luis Suarez, his Italian citizenship test is under investigation. Nothing on his end from what I've read. Just maybe an error in the system or something with processing. So why don't you break that down and then go into the transfer itself?
So this is pretty new news, but from what I have heard, apparently or allegedly, he cheated on his Italian citizenship test. The wording that I've heard is that he was aware of the questions that he was going to be asked beforehand. So there are Italian authorities that are looking into this, but I really don't see this having a massive impact. He was linked with signing with Atletico Madrid now, fairly recently. I don't think this has any real impact on that. He's not going to Juventus anymore. They've come out and said that. But what do you think that means for that potential signing?
Well, I know we discussed it in the transfer talk video that's also up on the channel right now. We discussed Morata and Luis Suarez, the potential landing spots for them. It's looking more and more likely that Morata will land at Juventus instead of Luis Suarez, and then Suarez will go to Madrid in place of Morata. And it's a really just a strange set of circumstances overall.
Yeah, I think that when you look at this at its face value, Atletico Madrid should definitely be able to sign him. Barcelona doesn't seem to see him in their future anymore, and I really don't think that this is going to have any lasting impact. It's not going to change anything that happens on a soccer field in the long term. So let's move on to some of the impressive English Premier League teams and some of the least impressive teams. What are some of your favorites from this past 2 weekends?
Yeah, so obviously Liverpool had a bit of a scare against Leeds, but when you look at how Leeds United played and with the energy, Liverpool was very calm and collected, and they didn't play their best, but they really recovered against Chelsea, so I think that was a very tremendous performance. I also think when you look at the way Manchester United played, I know they only played once against Crystal Palace, but I'd have to say that that's one of my more disappointing outcomes from the past weekend. I don't think they played with a lot of energy or enthusiasm, and I understand they had some new players. They're trying to work out a new system, playing a bit more wide as opposed to playing through the middle with Pogba. But they really struggled and didn't look enthusiastic against Crystal Palace.
Yeah, I think when you're looking at impressive teams, Liverpool just has to be up there. I mean, with their 4-3 win at Leeds, you can look at that and say, oh, they conceded 3, but you can also look at it and say they scored 4, you know. And then in the 2-0 win against Chelsea, they fixed their defense. They were able to stop Chelsea in their very, very good attack. They looked like old Liverpool, in my opinion. I think this was a vintage Liverpool win. And I think that if they can keep this form up, especially with Thiago and with their new signings, I think they could definitely, I mean, they're never not a favorite, but I think they should definitely be up there to win the Prem if they keep playing like this, and Chelsea doesn't. But and then when you look at bad, I mean, there's nobody else that really stands out besides Manchester United. The 3-1 loss to Crystal Palace at home. Granted, VAR did not help them out, but I mean, when it comes down to it, VAR is just getting it right. So they made some mistakes and they were punished for it. I don't like to look at other teams like West Brom. You know, they were playing some very, very good teams. And I don't think that when you realistically look at that and look at the teams that they were playing, that you can say, okay, well, they should get some points from that. So them being at 0 points is not really a surprise. So I don't want to, hit on them too hard, but Manchester United being in the bottom half of the table is definitely not a good look for them this early.
Yeah, and again, it's very early. These are just some reactions from, again, some teams have only played one match. Most have played two, however. So we'll be coming back to this throughout the season, just kind of looking at the progress of these teams and where they're at. And I just want to look at some things in the Champions League right now. Again, we're in the final stages of getting. Obviously, we have the 26 automatic bids at this point. And then we're going to have 6 teams from the final playoff round, potentially an Austrian team and Red Bull Salzburg and Ghent, and potentially some Greek teams. More looking at the draw itself, there's a few interesting potential matchups with the way the pot system is set up. For instance, Bayern Munich's in pot 1, Dortmund's in pot 2. You could see that matchup. You could see a Real Madrid Atletico Madrid group. You could see a Real Madrid Barcelona group. There's just a lot of interesting setups. For instance, the 3 Italian teams all in pot 3 with Inter, Lazio, and Atalanta. Both Manchester teams are in pot 2, so you won't see that matchup. But there's a few weaker teams even in pot 2. Zenit St. Petersburg and Porto could match up against, for instance, Chelsea and Man City, where the pot 2 team is clearly far and above better than the pot 1 team. So that'll be very interesting. The draw for that will not take place yet. The first leg of matchups, they took place on September 22nd and 23rd. Again, the first leg of these final playoff rounds to get the final 6 teams in. Then the second leg of those matchups will take place on September 29th and 30th. And then finally, we'll cover this in depth. The Champions League draw will take place October 1st. This will be a huge event, as that'll finally get us reset and going in Champions League action again. It'll be really exciting. Joseph, you just want to kind of break down a few things as far as Morata and Luis Suarez and how that will kind of be changing things around the top tier of European football.
Well, yeah, I want to talk about Juventus. I mean, being a Juventus fan, it does seem like I'm a little biased, but they are kind of the talk of the town right now with Andrea Pirlo, who does seem to be a football manager, signing. That is his first job ever in charge, and he did get a 3-0 win over Sampdoria. He played a 3-4-1-2 formation, which is a reminiscent of the back 3 that Conte used to play back when Pirlo was a Juventus player. He did have Danilo at right center defender, which was a little interesting to see. But I think that once he's healthy, Matthias de Ligt will slot in there, and they'll have a deadly back 3.
Considering that Morata could potentially be headed to Juventus, where at this point it's potentially more than likely, where do you see him slotting in? Obviously, potentially up top, or could he play behind the attacking front?
Well, given the signings that they've gotten already with Kulusevski, I think he will be playing right bench. He will not be playing very much this season. I don't see him playing. Kulusevski had a dream debut. He scored a phenomenal goal to open the game in the 13th minute, and the rest of the debut signings had a very, very good games. McKennie, the American, just played out of his mind. 94 touches, 88.4% pass accuracy. He had 1 key pass, 3 shots, 2 on target, 4 tackles, 3 interceptions, 2 clearances. I could go on. He played phenomenal. I don't see him leaving that center mid position, and if he does, Pirlo is out of his mind. He just played incredible. So I think that him and Kulusevski playing off of Ronaldo, playing off on the sides. Kulusevski does tend to play more of a winger. You've got a really deadly team here with Juventus, and then Dybala wasn't playing. He's a little injured. Douglas Costa came on as a sub. I don't see Morata playing very much. He might be a replacement for if there's a game shortly after a Champions League game or a big game in the league.
Right. I think he's definitely firmly entrenched in the second team is what you're saying. Mm-hmm. But considering, Juventus, they will have more competition than they have in years past for the league. They may need to play, heavy minutes of star players to guarantee the league. They may need to play heavy minutes into March and April, unlike they usually do. Of course, they intend to go deep into the Italian Cups and deep into Champions League play, so that you could see heavy squad rotation, and maybe this is just them ensuring depth and maybe a bit of insurance. Maybe Cristiano Ronaldo doesn't want to play a mid-November matchup against Genoa, and or anybody, as far as I'm concerned, in the bottom half of the Serie A table. I mean, you could see, Ronaldo's minutes begin to decline a bit as Morata is very serviceable. So maybe this is a strategic move. Again, like you're saying, as far as improving the first team squad, which I don't know how much more you can do that with Juventus, it's questionable. But as far as depth is concerned, it's a very adept signing.
Yeah, I do think that, with Pirlo being a brand new coach, this was just his first game. I don't want to make any rash judgments, but I think there is also a chance that he could start to change his formation, play with more of a back four once Alexandro is injury-free. And if there is an injury to the center backs, absolutely, this kind of has to be an option. It'll be interesting to see, do they start to play with a front three again? Do they keep those 2 strikers and work off of each other? So as the season goes on, as we get into more and more important games versus the lesser games where the second team can play, I think we'll see where Morata fits in.
All right, yeah, well, that is all for this week of European football news. I was joined by Joseph Farina. Again, I'm Marko Jerkovic. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and leave your own unqualified opinions in the comments section down below. Again, thank you so much for listening.